This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and as you might guess, this is the Microsoft Surface Pro. This is the Pro 9 for 2022. The decade of Surface already, can you imagine that? So yeah, one of the most copied designs out there, but also one that hasn't changed a lot over the last year or two or so. But when you look at the evolution of the Surface devices, from something with rather a small screen to this with a 13-inch display, and one that went through a couple of different pen technologies, and it was great, then it was not so great, and now it's actually very good again. It's a unique device. It's a tablet first, obviously, from the design, but the keyboard is good enough, it's serviceable enough, that you could use it as your only laptop. I think a lot of business people and school kids still do that. But is it still worth buying in 2022? We're going to look at it now. All right, so the Surface Pro 9 for 2022 is interesting because now there's no separate ARM device line, the Surface Pro X. They're merged into one device. You just choose whether you want the SQ3 processors, Qualcomm ARM-based processor, or the usual Intel processors. So yeah, and the design has evolved to be a little bit more curved around the edges and all that sort of thing. So it's got a more modern look and a little bit more like Surface Pro X than the old model in a way. Now the casing is almost the same as Surface Pro 8. It uses that new updated type cover connector, so that means that type covers for Surface Pro 8, Surface Pro X, and newer will work on this, but if you have an old one from the Pro 5, Pro 6, Pro 7, no, those don't work because the connector changed for the keyboards. Bummer, given that those are sold separately and are not cheap. Anyway, the changes are the ports. You get two Thunderbolt 4 ports if you're getting an Intel model, and that's it, not even a headphone jack. On the Surface connector, of course, where you plug in the charger. Why did the headphone jack have to go away? I can't imagine, but I know a lot of people aren't too thrilled with that, all right? And now the power button is up top by the volume buttons instead of on the side, which I think many of us appreciate because this is something that you grab and you put in the bag, holding on the sides, and you're always hitting the power button instead of waking the thing up. So no more of that. So that's the big design changes that are going on here. The refresh brings us Intel 12th generation CPUs. You have your choice of a Core i5 or a Core i7, or again, the SQ3 processor, the latest evolution of ARM. I'll talk about them separately. We have the Intel one in. I have not tested the ARM one, but I'll tell you the facts on the ARM one. We have a 13-inch IPS pixel sense display, still a lovely display, very high resolution, 2880 by 1920, so it's 3:2 aspect ratio, 267 ppi, supports pen and touch, the pen not included. Keyboard not included. So when I tell you that the starting price is $999, and interestingly enough, that is for the Intel version. The ARM version actually starts at $1299. You're going to have to factor in $179 for a signature type cover, available in a variety of colors, and you can get it bundled with the slim pen too, if you need both of them, for $279. Otherwise, the pen is sold separately for $130. If you need the charger for that pen, because you don't have one of these nifty type covers that charges the pen, then that's $35 additional. So these prices will start to make an M2 MacBook Air look, not that expensive. Honestly, that's the thing with Surface products. Much as I love them, much as there's nothing like them other than the many copies that folks have tried to do of these things, it's a unique and delightful device. So for some who are willing to pay for those features, you're going to pay for those features a lot. It tops out around $2,600 or $2,700. I guess you have a Core i7, 32 gigs of RAM, a 1 terabyte SSD. And the ARM versions go up to about $1,900 for the max configuration. That's a 512 gig SSD and 16 gigs of RAM. So it's expensive but delightful. What's so delightful about it? Well, it is incredibly light at under 2 pounds and well under a kilogram in weight, yet it packs the power of any Ultrabook on the market today with an Intel 12th Gen CPU, talking about the Intel version right now for these things. That's pretty impressive, the amount of horsepower that you get. I like the type covers. I leave that up to you. You can always use external Bluetooth keyboards and all that sort of thing, but I like it. It works pretty well. It's got good tactile feel. They've tuned it over the years so it doesn't make as much as a yakety 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 sound when you're typing on it. The trackpad is decent enough. It's about as big as they could make it on a type cover of this size, and Microsoft Precision, obviously. And the display quality is very good on this. Now, I'd like to see them tune it a little bit better. You get two color profiles out of the box now, sRGB and Vivid. We tested it on the Vivid mode, and the blues are a little too high, and the color calibration whatever, the gamma is a little bit too low, but it's close enough. It's a delightful product if you're going to be doing photo editing. You could obviously do video editing on this. I personally would pick something like a mobile workstation with dedicated graphics for that. That said, if you're the kind of person who's into eGPUs, not that that's a very affordable proposition, you could do that since you have Thunderbolt 4 now. The problem is GPU enclosures typically run around $350 or so, and then you're talking about a good GPU can cost you $500 or more. So I think it's often cheaper just to get yourself a gaming laptop or something if you need something more powerful for video editing, 3D rendering, and all those things. But it's possible. When you're talking about the processor, though, the Intel 12th generation processor might not be the best in terms of power and heat consumption, because both Intel and AMD right now, just like NVIDIA, are getting performance ramped up by increasing the watts and the heat. Oh well. Anyway, you got a lot more processor cores in the multi-processor tests, particularly in benchmarks. You'll see it improves here, and also real-world performance with anything that uses multi-core performance, which is a lot of stuff these days. So Adobe CC Suite and all of that kind of thing. So the performance on this, if you look at the CPU scores, it's actually better than a Surface Laptop Studio, which is pretty impressive because that had a higher wattage CPU and it's not that old a device just yet. And it's as powerful as gaming laptops were 4 years ago. So that's a lot of CPU horsepower going on there. So honestly, it's not going to feel slow. If you need the GPU strongly for anything, then obviously, again, that's not the thing. But even doing 2D work in Photoshop and in Lightroom, the performance is very good. I spend a lot of time doing digital painting. For those of you who are new to our channel and don't know this, I do a lot of realistic style 2D painting in Photoshop. And this handles it great. Multiple layers, doing things like content-aware fills, which are typically CPU-heavy things. Even when the device is unplugged from power and not even running in a high-performance kind of mode, it all works well, brush tracking and all that sort of thing. So it's pretty powerful. That's one of the appeals of it, especially given its size. And the nice big 3:2 aspect ratio display. When it comes to the pen, we use Microsoft Slim Pen 2 with it, which is the current generation of that Carpenter-style pencil. Has an eraser on the butt. You can pair it with Bluetooth if you want for some additional features, not required at all to use the pen. Pressure sensitivity and tilt supported if you're using brushes that actually support tilt. And the line tracking is very good now. I'm not even going to bother to show you the diagonal line tracking because it's just great. It's smooth. It's nice. And you know, back in the days of Surface Pro 6, Surface Pro 7, I still wasn't that happy with the pen as an artist. For note-taking, it was fine, but line jitter, things like that were just not there for me to have good control. And now I enjoy it. I don't want to run over to Wacom Cintiq instead or an iPad Pro to do my artwork in terms of how the pen behaves. And of course, even though Apple might make you think that they just invented this for the new iPad Pros, Windows and Wacom tablets, pen displays, have had hover for quite some time and still do. So for those of you who like that, you've got it. Sound on this is also quite good. 2-watt stereo speakers on board. Surprisingly, a lot of bass for a little device. And I mean, I think they knew they were going up against the high-end iPads there. So the bar was raised pretty high on that stuff. So you might not have quad speakers and that fancy stuff, but it's good. Upgradability. It's a Surface, not so good. Their one concession to that was when they add the little trapdoor under the kickstand where you could actually access the SSD to upgrade it yourself. It uses the little shorty height ones, not the more commonly available M2280 ones, but at least you can do that. RAM is as ever soldered on board, so is the Wi-Fi module. You get Wi-Fi 6E. It's an Intel AX211 card this time, so good on that. Now let's talk a little bit about the SQ3 device, the ARM device. So why would you get that instead? If you're using mostly Microsoft apps, Office, Teams, that sort of thing, stuff that has been compiled for ARM, then the performance is going to be pretty decent. We're not talking about the Apple-esque using ARM is much, much faster thing. With Windows, they're still playing catch-up and trying to get things to run as fast as it would on Intel processors. But the good news is we have full x64 support now, broader, but still, if you're going to be using Adobe apps, Photoshop and Lightroom are available for the ARM processor, but it's not that responsive yet, not that great, or you're going to be using, Blender, all these things, then it's not going to be the choice for you. But if you're in Microsoft territory in those sorts of apps. Then it can work and you'll get better battery life. Whereas Surface Intel here is still at the around 6 hours of battery life with your brightness set at about 40% or so, and doing medium to kind of level demanding tasks. You can get 8 to 9 hours on the ARM version, so that's pretty appealing. And also that one has 5G, including millimeter wave, at least in the United States you get millimeter wave. So for those of you who need connectivity on the go, that can be appealing too. So that's why that exists. Unfortunately, it's not the more affordable alternative, and a lot of people think since they're giving concessions on performance at times, why do I have to pay more for this? That is what it is. So that's the Microsoft Surface Pro 9. So as ever, I mean, it's a unique device, despite the fact that there have been a million Chinese clones, companies you've never heard of who have made one, and big name companies like Dell. The latest Dell XPS 13 2-in-1 is actually kind of a clone of this sort of design, and a little bit cheaper too. HP has made it, you know what I mean. But that, as they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. The Microsoft product is just a delight to use if you need something with pen support, and that has quite a good amount of power, and it can be tablety when you need it, and kind of laptopy when you need it as well. So when people say, oh, I can get an M2 MacBook Air, yeah, you sure could, but I think the use cases are just so different for a lot of people. The Mac is a traditional laptop without a touchscreen even, let alone pen support, and this one has those things. So if you need touch, if you need the pen and all that sort of thing, you should be considering this, or maybe an iPad Pro, depending on what programs you need to run, but you see what I'm getting at. It's still the best of Windows tablets that are on the market with a price that really, really hurts. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.